Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Creators. I'm Dr. Sasha McBain, a clinical psychologist and member of the ISTSS Public Information and Education Production Subcommittee. ISTSS strives to disseminate knowledge and promote high-quality education and training to improve access to care and quality of care for those who are impacted by traumatic stress. To meet this objective, the ISTSS Production Subcommittee is collaborating with developers of the interventions highlighted in the ISTSS Prevention and Early Treatment Clinical Guidelines to support widespread dissemination and implementation of the recommended interventions among ISTSS members and the broader public. And today I am very happy to welcome Dr. Ignacio Guajero, the developer of EMDR Protocol for Recent Critical Incidences, which was recommended as a single session selective intervention. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Sasha. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm so happy to be here.
And I thank you for being here. And I was wondering if we could start, if you could give our viewers a brief introduction.
Well, I am a field worker, mental health professional. I have spent my whole professional life working in the field with survivors of human-provoked or natural disasters. And I like research to disseminate our findings and to collaborate with the traumatic stress field. I live in Mexico City. I'm fully vaccinated. Good news, and with a beautiful weather.
Wonderful. Can we start with what are the specific goals and the key components of the intervention?
Yes, Sasha, of course. The EMDR protocol for recent critical incidents and ongoing traumatic stress, or EMDR PRESI, is an 8 phases and 3-pronged protocol addressing the reprocessing of past adverse experiences, present triggers, and the development of a future template with post-traumatic growth. That's very important, post-traumatic growth. This intervention was developed in the field because I am a field worker, and is especially designed to treat recent, within the last 3 months, present, meaning ongoing, or past prolonged adverse experiences where related stressful events continue for an extended time. This intervention conceptualizes the continuum of prolonged adverse experiences as an extended event, creating a cumulative trauma exposure memory network of linked pathogenic memories with similar emotional, somatic, sensorial, and cognitive information that extends into the present moment and often, very often, produce maladaptive, catastrophic concerns about the future. Dr. Francine Shapiro, the developer of EMDR therapy, endorses this intervention for an extended post-disaster period to address situations in which there is ongoing trauma and therefore no subsequent period of safety, just like the COVID-19 pandemic, for example.
Yeah, thank you. Is there a specific target population for the intervention?
Yes, Sacha. Population living with ongoing or prolonged traumatic stress, like victims of sexual and or physical violence, chronic or severe illness, like cancer, emergency response personnel, long-term disasters, and pandemic. For example, as of April 2021, this year, This intervention has 8 published research studies that have proven its efficacy with different populations. For example, with survivors of a 7.2 earthquake with an extended post-disaster period, with forensic personnel after a human massacre, with traumatized first responders, with technological disaster survivors, with family caregivers of patients with autism spectrum disorder, with first responders on active duty, with female patients with cancer-related PTSD diagnosis, and with female minors victims of sexual and/or physical violence and related PTSD diagnosis.
How do you measure the treatment outcomes to determine if the intervention is having the desired impact on participants?
Very good question. We have been using the following assessment instrument to determine if the intervention is having the desired impact on participants. First, the gold standard, the clinician administered PTSD scale or DSM-5 or CAPS-5, the post-traumatic stress disorder checklist for DSM-5 or PCL-5, fantastic instrument, fantastic instrument. And the hospital anxiety and depression scale to assess anxiety and depression. We know the comorbidity between PTSD, anxiety, and depression. Those are the 3 main instruments we have been using.
You've mentioned that this intervention can be used with lots of different types of trauma experiences. How do you ensure that the intervention is culturally sensitive for diverse populations?
I love this question. I love this question because it is not only the Latin American population or the US population, but a global population. So to ensure that the intervention is culturally sensitive for diverse populations, I recommend the following. First, before the intervention, clinician must be engaged in a culturally sensitive approach, toward the participants' customs and heritage. And we use a cultural mediator to support us. Second, translate the intervention protocol and the assessment instrument to the local language or the participants' language in the case of refugees. We have in Spain, Europe, we speak Spanish, they speak Spanish in Spain. However, they have a lot of refugees from Africa that speak Arabic. Provide psychoeducation to the participant, to the potential participant related to trauma to decrease, Sasha, this is very important, provide psychoeducation about trauma to decrease the possible prejudice against mental health intervention, like I'm crazy. Conduct all the interviews in the local language with local interpreters. And finally, schedule the therapy sessions according to the local predominant religious ritual, for example, times to pray, or weather condition, extreme heat. Sometimes the morning is impossible to conduct the intervention in the mornings because the extreme heat. You need to wait until the afternoon or maybe night to conduct the intervention.
Thank you. What resources and training are required to implement the intervention?
Thank you. Very thoughtful questions. Really, it is the first time that I receive a questionnaire like this, so thoughtful. Well, about staff and technology, there is no need for staff because the EMDR Prezi is a one-on-one individual intervention that can be conducted in person or online using a HIPAA compliance program. That will be the technology. About time of the intervention, you mentioned at the beginning, it is one-shot intervention. Yes, the results, the ISTSS clinical guidelines present, it was of our intervention with just one intervention. However, with persons living prolonged adverse experiences, based on our research, female minors, victims of sexual and/or physical violence, prolonged, and related PTSD diagnosis with the CAPS-5 required an average of 560 minutes individual sessions provided 2 times a week intensive treatment to achieve the PTSD diagnosis remission. 5 60-minute sessions to achieve all of them the PTSD diagnosis remission. Now, about the training. To attend the training, therapists must be trained in EMDR therapy and then complete a training for early intervention and ongoing traumatic stress. The training is either in person, 2 full days, or online with 4 weekly modules plus live question and answer. The training is conducted by me and hosted through Scaling Up and costs an average of $325 US. However, this is important. To make it more accessible and affordable, we offer scholarships to individuals and also discounts for groups, and a substantial part of the revenues goes to humanitarian and research projects.
That is wonderful. Thank you for all of that information. What considerations are necessary to ensure the sustainability of the intervention?
Great. Well, I have been thinking in all your questions for a long time. So finally, I believe that ongoing support and consultation for the therapist trained in this intervention is core to create sustainability. We offer a membership program which provides ongoing support and consultation in order to create sustainability and the proper usage of the intervention. It is not enough to learn any intervention. You need support of people with more experience to help you take off on the intervention.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good point of continued support for the people actually providing the intervention.
Yeah.
What challenges or lessons have you learned from implementing the intervention, and what advice do you have for individuals or agencies who are thinking about using this intervention?
Yeah. Since many years ago, I am EMDR Institute Senior Trainer of Trainer. So I have been conducting the EMDR basic training for many years and also this training. And based on my years of experience as a trainer, I have learned that the later the therapist uses the intervention after finishing the training, the less likely that they are to do so. Therefore, I would advise agencies and clinicians to start practicing the EMDR Prezi or any other intervention you learn immediately after the training. This will build confidence and competency using the intervention plus the support. I encourage all of my students to use the intervention tomorrow. You finish today, do it tomorrow. Jump it. We will be here supporting you. It is an organic support. It is not a pyramidal support with formal supervision. No, it is organic. You can share with us your questions. You will have questions. You will have doubts. That's normal. That's the learning curve. But we are here to support you. But do it. If people delete the practicum of the intervention for a month, probably they will never use the intervention.
It's such a good point, and is parallel to trauma, where we have to overcome the emotional uncertainty and avoidance to kind of get into it and feel more comfortable.
Yes, totally. Very good point.
Just a couple more questions for you.
Pleasure.
Have there been any changes to the way the treatment is implemented since it was initially developed?
Yes, the COVID-19 pandemic, it was a challenge for all of us. In 2020, by March, we need to adapt and field test, not just adapt, but field test the adaptability of the EMDR Prezi in the real world for online intervention. Thanks God, we have a 34 team of clinicians. They help us to test it in the field for the remote intervention. So that's the adaptation with it. You can use it in person or online.
You mentioned COVID, and so what has the unique challenges been with COVID, or what has come up for you in terms of using this within the context of COVID or with the COVID population even?
Yes. Well, the first challenge was to learn how to use Zoom and the telehealth best practices. I took training on telehealth. That was the first challenge. The second challenge was to decide which bilateral stimulation method we will use online instead of eye movement, which is the first option for bilateral stimulation in EMDR therapy and therefore in the EMDR Prezi. It is so difficult for a client using a telephone to follow the fingers. So we decide to use the EMDR therapy, butterfly hug method for self-administered bilateral stimulation. Because of the advantages of this method, like the control obtained by clients over their bilateral stimulation, it is not the therapist doing the set, but it is the client. It is like this, the butterfly hug. You interlock your thumbs, you place your hands. Here are my clavicles below, and it is alternated method. And you ask the client to do it until he or she feel in their body that it has been enough. The client always have the control over the bilateral stimulation. So the client is always inside the window of tolerance to process the traumatic material. And this is an empowering factor that aids the client's retention of a sense of safety while processing distressing memories.
Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing this information with us about EMDR Prezi. You shared a little bit that there are trainings. Where would people go in order to look more into getting training or experience with intervention?
Yes. Thank you for the question. It is www.scalingupemdr.com.
Okay.
scalingupemdr.com.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate you
Sasha,
taking the time, and
it was a pleasure, and butterfly hug for you all from Mexico. Yes.